Just a moment.
Okay, just let us know. All right.
Okay, you are live.
All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ann Roederer. I'm a stormwater engineer with the city of Annapolis, and we're here to give you an update today about a project at the Merryman at Spa Creek. It's a Spa Creek headwater, a tributary that is near Merryman Road, and we've dubbed it the Merryman Stream Restoration Project. It's not really called the Merryman Stream. So I'm just going to give a quick welcome and introduction. So welcome, we have a sign-in sheet. I think you've all signed in, so thank you for that. We're going to go through a presentation and talk about the project history and goals a little bit, and then talk about the design as it stands today. And then we'll have a time for questions and discussion. So maybe just hold your questions unless they're just so pressing, you must ask them immediately until the question and discussion time. And then we'll just have a quick wrap up and talk about next steps. So some quick introductions here. Diane is our program manager for wastewater with the city of Annapolis. Jen is the project manager for this project from the wastewater perspective. Mike Rosberg, program manager for stormwater for the city of Annapolis. And I've already introduced myself, Ann Roederer. I'm the project manager for stormwater for this project. We also have our design engineers here from Balin Consultants, Megan and Jason, and they will be walking you through the design in more detail. I also just want to acknowledge that this project is being partially funded by the Whole Watershed Act. We teamed with a group of watershed organizations and the county to get funding for many projects across the Severn River watershed. And this is one of those projects. So in that partnership around the Severn River watershed, we have the city and the county of Anne Arundel County. We also have Spa Creek Conservancy. Amy is here representing that. Online, we have Ben from the Severn River Association, and the lead for that partnership is the Resilience Authority of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. Sign-in sheets we talked about. So, project history and goals. Mike and Diane are going to give you a little introduction to the project.
Hi. This project became a reality after we had a sewer overflow incident. We had some erosion of the existing stream bed area, which undermined the sewer pipe. Subsequently, a tree then fell on the pipe, broke the pipe, and allowed debris to get into the sewer line, which then thereby caused a backup. At this point, we're getting ready to do inspection and rehabilitation of the pipe, which Jen will talk a little bit more about.
And a little more history. After the sewer failure happened, we did some immediate repairs to stabilize the slope in this area. But the city knew that this is not the permanent solution we want. We wanted a holistic approach to this outfall. It was flagged in our outfall risk assessment as a high priority outfall due to all the erosion there. So that's why we've brought a consultant on board to do a much more thorough analysis of the area. So.
Thank you. All right, so let's talk about the sewer restoration work first. Our goal is to end up lining everything highlighted in yellow. It's about 2,700 linear feet of 8-inch and 10-inch sewer pipe. So I know those on land can't see me pointing, but it's along Merryman Road. We've got Heritage, and then you've got Hilltop Village in this area, just so you're all aware of where the sewer pipe is. We're gonna end over here at the Public Works Salt Dome off of Spa Road. We are hoping that as soon as we get the permit, we're going to start. It is going to take approximately 4 months to do the sewer restoration portion. It's not going to be 4 months of work. What you're going to see is the first phase is going to be videoing. So they will come in and install any needed mulch access roads and the bypass pumps. Then we're going to take a video of the pipe just to see, how it looks and how we are going to approach the restoration. Can you? Thank you. Then we're going to order the liner, which takes about 4 to 6 weeks. So the bypass pipes are going to stay in place and the contractor will return to actually line the pipes. After that, we're going to look at the CCTV to make sure it worked and remove all of the pumps in the mulch and do the restoration. What to expect? It's not quiet work. You're likely going to hear pumps and generators while the project is going on. There may be some interruptions to water service, but it will depend on the flow coming out of the pipes. We're hoping that there won't be any water interruptions, just bypassing. The curing process itself creates steam and odors. You can see in the picture to the right, the steam coming out of the manhole as the liner is being cured. You might see a couple of vac trucks in the manholes just helping with the cleaning process. There will be interruptions to traffic along Merryman Road. It will be brief, hopefully tops a week and not shut down the road, but it is a possibility that we may need to do a detour in the area because the trucks are so large that put the liner into the manholes. We might not be able to get access otherwise. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to talk about the stream restoration project.
So the stream restoration component is going to be about approximately 490 linear feet of outfall channel restoration. And it also includes the Hawkins Lake head wall and outfall repair, which is this area right here. So the study area begins at Merryman Road and the culvert and continues downstream until approximately the critical area boundary. Just to give you some ideas of the drainage area, it is located within the Severn River watershed, which is an 81 square mile watershed, which is approximately 52,000 acres. The Merryman Road drainage area to the downstream study point is 97 acres. Of that, 43 acres is impervious. Impervious are hard surfaces like rooftops, sidewalks, roads. So it doesn't allow runoff to infiltrate and produces flashier discharges. 44% is a very high percentage within a drainage area. So the drainage area is heavily urbanized with commercial and residential development. The target benefit and goals of the stream restoration is 1, to protect the sewer infrastructure. We also want to reduce the sediment and nutrient loads to the downstream waters. And that's also done by stabilizing the storm drain outfalls and banks. We also want to reduce the erosive stream velocities to prevent future erosion of the banks. And then we want to enhance ecological function within the area. And then the city has an MS4 credit through the Maryland Department of the Environment. And as a result of this project with the bank stabilization and nutrient reduction, they'll be able to take some credits towards their permitting goals. And this is a picture of the Hawkins Lane outfall that's failing and just some example of the sedimentation and then the high banks within the project reach. So there is just one project reach for this project. The overall reach we investigated was about 900 linear feet because we want to go far enough down to make sure we find a stable tie-in point for the restoration. And so the reach, like I said, it originates at the storm drain outfall that has 3 storm drain pipes discharging into the channel. The reach includes sewer infrastructure throughout the entire reach. Like Mike said, as part of the temporary fix, there was riprap dumped for temporary stabilization. That's at the upstream portion of the reach. And then there is active bank erosion throughout the reach, banks up to 4.5 feet high. And then here's another picture of the failing Hawkins Lane storm drain outfall. And you can see right behind it is a sewer manhole that's at risk with that head wall failing. So this will get repaired as part of the project as well. And then once we get downstream about, 490 feet, you can see that there's much more stable banks that are just on average half a foot to a foot. So that's a nice stable point to tie into and stop the stream restoration. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason to talk about the environmental resources.
Hi, everybody. As kind of following what Megan said on enhancing the ecological resources, part of the effort in the initial assessment work for the project is to complete a natural resource inventory. So that's kind of figuring out what resources are there and what can potentially be done to help those as part of the restoration. So my team went out in late 2023 and we completed a wetland delineation and waters of the US delineation. So we determined how much wetland area, we classified them based on whether they're forested or emergent, those types of things. And we also looked at the stream channels. So in total, we delineated approximately 0.44 acres of wetland area. The majority of that was forested, kind of toward the downstream end where some of the sewer, more of the sewer inspection work is going to occur. That's a little bit less forested or emergent, so it's herbaceous vegetation. And then in total, we also delineated almost 1,100 linear feet of stream channel. The vast majority of that is perennial, basically just means that it flows all the time. We also did a forest stand delineation. So we did plots out there to determine the general character of the forest, what the composition is, species types, that kind of stuff. And then we also surveyed over 200 individual trees. And those all go on the plans and we do whatever, is practical to try and minimize disturbance to those. So they're all on the plans and everything as well. The last component of the natural resource inventory is sort of a lingo-y term, trilogy letter coordination. So basically we submit queries to the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to determine if there are any potential rare species in the area. And then we also submit to the Maryland Historic Trust. And those three agencies have input in the permitting process, which I'll talk about a little bit later, or we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. But basically, there really wasn't anything of concern in the area. The trilogy stuff, it goes into the permitting process, and that's kind of where it'll end. The Army Corps may give like a time of year restriction on something, but that'll just be a condition in one of the authorizations. So anyway, pass it back to Megan.
The proposed design approach for this project is what we call a regenerative stormwater conveyance or RSC system. These involve in-stream parabolic rock structures that are designed to convey large storm flows so they can safely carry the 100-year storm flow. So the majority of runoff and rain events will be contained within the weir structures themselves. So this is just a sample photo of like that parabolic weir structure. Then there's these low profile landforms that tie into the existing banks and help create pools that reconnect to the fringe wetlands. And you can see the RSC systems also then improve green space and then provide natural habitat improvements as well. Here's the proposed design for this project. So it's going to consist of 7 of those weir structures and pools, starting at the outfall, the storm drain outfall pipe. There are 2 places where the sewer kind of crosses the restoration. The sewer line will be encased with stone to provide further protection of the sewer pipe in these areas. The weir structures themselves are going to be 30 feet wide, and they'll have an average drop of a half a foot to a foot. And the alignment and the weirs and the grading are designed to kind of follow the existing bank. So that way we're minimizing encroachment onto the adjacent private properties. And then for the Hawkins Lane outfall, we're going to propose a manhole and realign the pipe so we can discharge it directly into a pool and also divert it away from the sanitary sewer that's adjacent to it now. The limit of clearing will be minimized to the minimum necessary for not only the restoration, but then also construction. So there's going to be some construction access areas and also staging areas for equipment. But we minimize the limit of clearing and tree impacts as much as possible for the project. I'll turn it over to Jason to
Again, following what Megan was saying on the tree clearing, there's approximately 0.8 acres of the stream restoration component of the project that is located in forest. As also Megan said, we've tried to minimize that. We'll implement some tree protection measures, best management practices such as tree planking, tree protection fencing, to try and preserve the trees that, don't necessarily need to come down as part of the project. And then similarly, the access for equipment would be, there'll be mats and or mulch that's put down over the access point or access drive, and that will limit compaction and impacts on the tree roots. And then any trees that do come down, we generally try to incorporate those into the design so they stay on site. It's carbon source for the valley. It's habitat for, amphibians and insects and all the wildlife. So it's really beneficial to try and keep them there. And of course, hauling them off has its own carbon footprint impacts and such. And then once the project implementation is complete, the sort of grading and stone structures and those types of things, we're currently designing a very extensive planting plan that it'll have all native trees, shrubs, and herbaceous material. And hopefully, in the end, we'll end up with, lots of, wildlife friendly plants for pollinators and birds and, all the stuff that would be down in the stream valley. So, back to me.
These are just a few more examples of RSC systems that are within a year after construction. The top right is in a residential area, so you can see how the weir structures are just contained within the existing banks. Once again, this is the preferred approach when we're working near infrastructure or proposed improvements because it takes the least amount of footprint to provide stable conveyance of storm flows. Here are two other examples where you can just see the parabolic weir structures and how we're just contained within the stream valley. And you can see all the trees adjacent to the stream valley stay intact. They're not removed. And this picture is shortly after construction, just a few months, so you can see the grass starting to come up. This picture is probably about a year after construction, so you can start to see the improved green space and the plantings that improve the natural habitat for the project area. And then typically, I don't show the picture because you can't see the structures. 4 to 5 years after construction, we just walked this site like 6 weeks ago. You can't even see the structures anymore. It's just overtaken with the nice native vegetation. So it just has this natural look to it. So you are going to see the clearing initially, but then within a few years, the green space overtakes itself. So with the impacts to the natural resources and the amount of disturbed area, we do need permits from local, state, and federal agencies. Jason, do you want to talk briefly about the JPA?
Sure, yeah. So I guess I need the mic. So we have coordinated with the Maryland Department of the Environment as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We had a pre-application site meeting in November of 2024 with those two agencies. And we also brought the Critical Area Commission out. The stream component of the project is not in the critical area, but some of the downstream sewer inspection and lining work is within the critical area. We brought them out to take a look at the site because one of the trilogy letter submittals did identify as a GIS layer that the site could potentially contain habitat for some sensitive birds. They're called FIDs, forest interior dwelling species. Upon review with the critical area commission, they looked at the forest and decided that even though it is on this sort of overview GIS layer, they didn't think it was FIDS habitat. That was kind of the purpose of the meeting with them. But we have submitted the application to MDE and the Army Corps, and it's currently under review. We don't have any comments back yet. I'm not anticipating anything major out of them. And I would expect we'll probably get comments within maybe the next month or so. But it should be pretty straightforward review, I feel like.
And then we'll also need a city grading permit due to the limit of disturbance. And as part of the city grading permit review, they review the tree impacts and our reforestation to ensure we're meeting state regulations. And then the sediment control approval from Soil Conservation District and the NOI general permit for stormwater associated with construction activity. Those approvals are to ensure that while the project's under construction, we're not having sediment-laden runoff leave our contained project site. So there are measures to install, and then the construction activity permit makes sure that we're adhering to those discharge requirements. We are going to be impacting a handful of private properties, so we will need easements from those properties. Permanent easements will be needed where we're going to have the proposed structures and maintenance access. And then a couple areas we will just have temporary easements where we need that lawn area for maybe access or staging. But then after the project's done, it goes back to the lawn and the easement is terminated. The city is coordinating directly with those affected property owners to work through that process. So for the project schedule, we anticipate the permits and completing design late fall 2025. Winter 2026, we'll prepare bid documents that the city will then use to select a construction contractor. That procurement process and contract award will be in the spring. And then construction could start as early as summer of 2026, which lines up well with that in-stream closure period where work can't happen between March 1st and June 15th. And active construction is anticipated to take 2.5 months, give or take, but with mobilization and just getting those erosion and sediment controls in, and then just the kind of fine grading and cleaning up and clearing, the overall project timeline will probably take about 4 months. We do not expect any lane closures during the stream work. There may just be flaggers when that trucks are actively coming and leaving the project site. And with that, we can open up to questions and discussions. These are just some helpful numbers. If you notice any issues with dumping or illicit discharges, these are some city contacts that you can report to.
What is the level of the stream from the upland part of the county restored the stream to this part below, you know, the part above Merryman Road and this part? What, I mean, how big of a drop is that?
I don't know the elevation of the county. I mean, we know our elevation.
Why are you asking?
I don't know.
Just
I'm
curious.
just curious because I don't know. So like if you're construction, are you raising the level up?
We are raising the base of the stream bed.
Right.
So
I didn't know if it's-
we're restoring it, and then those weirs kind of tie into the
Yeah.
existing top of banks.
When we did the headwaters restoration, you know, below Spa Road and above Spa Road, there was like an 18-inch drop.
Yeah.
So we had to we raised the level of below Spa Road to that same level, you know, for this.
Okay.
But that, I was just curious about that.
And then throughout our projects.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to see what those, what the step pools look like later, you just walk to the South Cherry Road Bridge.
Yes.
and look up and down. That was, the stream restoration was done, that was 2018, so that's 7 years old. So, see, this is better than 20.
Right.
I was just there this morning, the other day, so it looks good, yeah. it looks good. Through this project, we drop about 6.5 feet.
Total.
Like a couple of questions.
I'm just gonna repeat your question after for the recording. Yeah, go for it. Go.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Will there be interruptions out of order and usage of toilet? And if so, how is the notification of that? Because
Oh, we have to talk in here.
We have to
Okay.
type it in.
The question was, is there going to be interruptions in water? Potentially, it depends on what the video of the sewer shows us, and how much flow is going through the sewer pipe. If you are gonna have interruptions, we pass out flyers. If you are in, an HOA, we will give that information to the HOA as well. And if you still have flow going on in your house, somebody will definitely be knocking on your door and asking you to turn off everything that you're using. Is that pretty accurate? Yeah.
So for the sewer work, if we're gonna proceed with our plan to put in a new liner. During that work, it is necessary to restrict water usage because once we put the liner in, it blocks your house's connection to the main line. And then the liner needs some time to cure, so then basically water would back up into your house. So we would ask you not to use water for a period of time. It depends on where you are along the alignment.
you're,
It could be 8 hours. It could be 8 hours. It wouldn't be more than, I'd say, 8 to 10 hours at the most. And we try to avoid it as much as we can, but sometimes, especially if in the stream area, it shouldn't really be a problem. We are going to line 2 of the areas that come into the stream from the Heritage neighborhood. And so the people that are along that sewer line may be affected, but we give out notice normally about a week ahead of time to give you an idea of when the work will take place. And then the contractor gives you notice 48 hours in advance.
and one more question. One of the slides showed some impressive machinery introducing steam coming out, so there's some pressure different flow there. Will there be any chance of some sort of sewage flow backing up at the ground level toilets, houses, due to exerting pressure on the system in various places?
No, that shouldn't be possible because the steam will be contained within the liner, which when it first goes in, it's one solid piece. There's no access, there's no entrance to your sewer lateral from that point. Once the sewer liner is cured, they'll come through with a robotic cutter and cut open your connection. And that'll basically be reinstating your connection to the main line.
So that not only the overall works, hydrodynamics, going forward swiftly from the ground level work.
It should not.
It's purely-
My street was done a couple months ago and there were no problems.
Yeah, I'm Kathy Craig. I live at 1309 Hawkins. So it appears from the pictures that you're widening at the Merryman and it's sort of wide and flat. And then once it goes down behind Hawkins, we're steeper at about 4.5 feet. So back there. So does that just funnel? Do you, well, it showed 1315 on the map. So from that point, is that where you stop any of that contouring?
What's your address?
1309.
Okay, so the question is 1309 Hawkins, they're kind of towards the bottom of the restoration. So how is that gonna work with the grading? We're all the way down.
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my house. You're past me.
Yeah, so there is not a proposed restoration,
15, I see that. We're 1309.
so there will be
That
no work.
stops Wider and then it just flows into the natural.
Correct, that's where the banks are only like a half a foot to a foot high, so when it rains, it'll just then overflow onto the floodplain.
Yeah, beyond where we're starting to stop in the stream restoration, the floodplain really does open up and it's really nice. There's a nice floodplain connection there. There's not nearly as much erosion. But the limits of our project, we are widening the channel, filling in to create better flow conditions, contain that 100-year storm better. So the erosion really will cut down. But then, yeah, past 13, like near where you are, that floodplain really opens up and it's much wider. So it'll give the chance for the stream to really spread out and it won't be nearly as a depth of the stream. It really opens up down there.
So when the water's running through, like in this area, that it produces very high shears and velocities because it's confined. Where here, when it's able to overflow onto the floodplain, it's less erosive and just can stably flow through the valley.
Very nice, yeah.
Yeah, it was very eroded right here and it, unfortunately the stream, the sewer failed because of all this undermining. Because yeah, those 3 pipes right there, they really in like the storms we had last week, it's amazing what it actually looks like running through there. So this will really help slow the energy of the stream down just down there with the bottom right, so it has a chance to really open up. Yeah.
Sorry I missed the beginning, but not to worry about where my house is, but just up from there is the slope and the pool is up there. And I was wondering what kind of effect, vibration, whatever, that we were worried about erosion, but are you generating failure or stuff when you're in that, or that's what's
The question is, will there be potential for failure while we're doing the work? We've done these in proximity to residential. You might feel a little bit of vibration, but we have them place the stone versus dump it. At the stockpile areas, they might kind of dump, but this like to go down. To create these weir shapes, you can see they have to the larger stones need to be strategically selected and placed. And then the cobble, may kind of get more dumped and compacted, but it's much smaller stone and it's not an issue.
not so much feeling.
Yes, yes.
You mentioned the watershed super impervious. Is there a stormwater component up in the upland areas as part of this? I guess more a question for the city. I mean, that you showed the apartment buildings, all that photo, there's a ton of impervious.
The question is, are there any potential upland stormwater improvements due to the large impervious area in the drainage area?
I mean, that's always a goal to do, point source management right directly at the impervious areas. I mean, we have lots of programs. We do outreach to different communities, to try to implement, like the church. I know they have their facilities. But yeah, it's a big drainage area that gets there. It's tougher to do on individual private homes. But, we do have our B&B database, which, some of these, some of the communities on the other side, I guess, of forests that drain here do have BMPs that they need to be maintaining. So that is, we always, do outreach because we have a grant program to help people implement stormwater on their site, which would end up helping slow water down before it even gets here. But the other thing about that is a lot of the requirements now for people to do stormwater on their site aren't really for the 100-year storm. They might have little rain gardens on their site that do a little bit for water quality, maybe the first inch of runoff. But the big problem here at the stream is that 100-year storm, which is just, there's no real place in the upstream drainage area to put big structures to really manage a big storm like this. So we always try to find places of impervious to put in stormwater.
Ideally, it'd be nice if you're doing outreach to the project that let people know, hey.
Yeah,
nice to do that. So how many you mentioned it's the city's getting impervious credits for 70 impervious credits?
It's getting what, it's getting the 40 3 acres that's in the drainage area. It's getting the 43 acres that's in the drainage area.
I think what's the conversion for the linear feet of stream?
Well, this is now site specific. This now uses the unit loads. And so based on the land use, there's a conversion. We have the report with the computations.
And so what is the overall, so the city has a permit to do X number of credits over the 5-year period. What is the overall city need? And this is meeting what? This is meeting 43 credits. What's the total impervious acre credits of the city? This is just a way to educate the public.
Yeah.
We're giving up or abdicating responsibility for 43 acres of parking lots. To do this, to do 500 feet of streamers. The public needs to understand this.
So I guess to back up, yeah, we're a phase 2 MS4 jurisdiction. So we have goals to do 20%. We have a baseline of impervious area. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I can get them to you if you want, but we have a baseline of impervious area. And by 2030, we need to implement 20% of that impervious area for restoration. And this is part of our restoration plan. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head as far as how many, and we've done restoration throughout our whole jurisdiction to meet these goals. I can follow up with the exact numbers and where this fits into the whole grand picture things. But yeah, a lot of these projects, right? These go through those restoration goals. I mean, this is also a combination of, yes, we're getting credit to meet these impervious area goals of the state, but this is also combined to really protect the sewer. Like this is a really protect the infrastructure of the sewer.
The infrastructure protection stabilization.
Yes. Right. Really.
So it's not.
That's why the goals are at the bottom.
Yeah. I think it's important the public doesn't understand these stream projects and too much great.
Right.
They don't realize that. And what the trade-off is.
Right.
And I think it's important to share that. I think I was ready for a 10-acre. Something like that's a lot. And I've heard it supported, a living spot in the project. I helped write the watershed. I'm very familiar with the whole restoration world, in restoration. When it's the other 2000, but it was disconcerting. I was ready for a little discipline, but so you're at the beginning of the process. It's the permit process is going now.
Yeah.
What are the next public opportunities for comment?
Sure, we will be doing more. I think we're just going to wait to get some feedback from Army Corps and MDE, to see if there are any substantial changes we might need to make to this design. But I mean, the schedule, right? I don't know off the top of my head, but we will likely do once we're at like 60% design right now, I think. Ish. I mean, once we really get those comments back from MDE and the Army Corps, we have a better design. But
I'll touch this one. Not even. All right. I think that's why I waited last ask the questions.
We're gonna just go through these again. Yeah, so if you want to follow up, please do. Please reach out. Jen is your contact for sewer wastewater issues and around the infrastructure piece, and I am your contact for stormwater. And this presentation and the project set as it is will go on the project website hopefully tomorrow. I think we're within the next 24 hours. We welcome your further input. And if you didn't fill out the sign-in sheet, please remember to do so. Thank you.
Are we all finished?
And Mark,
Yeah, you all finished?
all finished. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much.